Hello, and welcome to the webinar R2 Essentials Part 2. In these webinars, I present some functionalities that may otherwise go unnoticed, but that can really help in the day-to-day of your labor planning workflows. Part 1 was presented a few weeks ago, and the recording is available on the UBS YouTube channel. On the UBS YouTube channel, you'll find recordings of all of our past webinars, as well as some training videos that are available. It's really a nice collection of how-to and different products that reviews of different products that UBS will offer. Today we'll be looking at R2 Labor Essentials Part 2, and in Part 2 we'll be focusing on first working with dates. So working with dates, how to assign dates to labor lines and positions, so those impact not only the revenue but also impact scheduling of resources. We'll also take a really good look at how to create schedules and tasks that can be reused on the order and really help to manage the schedules on the order. And then finally we'll also look at how to copy an order and shift the entire date structure from an old date to a new date for a new event. And after that we'll shift gears and we'll go and take a look at a new functionality in R2 Labor, which is generating POs for labor lines or for positions within R2 Labor Planning. And that's for freelance labor, and they do need to have a vendor company that's designated, which we'll obviously take a look at when we get into that discussion. And those POs are generated upon confirmation, which again we'll take a look at. For now, let's start with working with dates in R2. So for this, we're actually going to start from R2. So now we're in R2, we're on an order, and we are on the labor tab of that order. So to start out with, we'll start just by adding some labor positions onto the order. So we'll tag some positions, a little bit more on the audio side, projectionist, camera operator, and then we'll have our stage technicians, some things that we'll enter in a little bit higher quantities. We'll take 6 stage technicians, we'll take also 4 riggers. That looks like a good crew for us to start out with. I'll go ahead and add those onto the order. So the typical way of adding dates onto the labor lines is using the assign dates. So it's pretty straightforward. Here I can generate a schedule just by clicking on the plus sign here. That'll generate a schedule off of the order dates and the order times. So that's the simplest way of doing it. This is a schedule that runs the whole gamut of the order. And apply that just to that one line. Now if I wanted to do that for multiple positions, I can. I'll just use the control key or the shift key and pick multiple positions, and same thing, assign dates, go ahead and build out the schedule, and then for these positions I'm going to actually remove the Thursday, so they don't need to show up on the day that is essentially being a setup day. And again, this is all hypothetical, just showing you some of the functionalities that are possible. So I have a schedule which is a subset of the entire order schedule, and I can do it definitely for all of the lines that are selected, and that's really straightforward. You can also set up other schedules. So again, let's go ahead and pick the first 3 stage technicians, and then just 2 of those stagehands, and here I'm going to assign dates, but I only want them to be there on the very first day, so we'll pick the 14th only, 8 a.m. 6 p.m., add that line, and now they're scheduled only for that one day. Alright, so our schedules are starting to build out very nicely. This is pretty straightforward. Now, What I'm going to present next is actually using schedules and tasks to build out your schedule in a way that you'll be able to manage large numbers or larger numbers of positions in a more efficient way. So this was great, but now if I need to make some changes, then I have to find those labor lines that need to actually change, find the positions, highlight them, go to assign dates, make the modifications, and change it. By using schedules and by using tasks, we can have one place where we can define those schedules, and then we can apply them to the labor lines. So let's go ahead and build this. I'm going to actually build out three. I'm going to build out a task for setup, a task for the show, and then a task for strike. So here it allows me to give it a name, which makes it easier for me to manage because now I know what this task is for. So that's going to be the setup. And we're going to say that the setup is only happening on the 14th, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. I'm happy with those times. So we'll go ahead and create that task. And let's go ahead and do the same thing for strike. And strike is only going to happen on the 18th. And this time we're going to change the times. So if it happens after the event, we're actually going to start to work at 6 p.m. And they're going to go until the 19th, until 2 a.m. Let's add that line. So now I have my setup and my strike tasks. Let's add one more. We'll call it show. And that one will generate for the entire duration of the event, as we did before. So now that I have my tasks created, I can go and assign those tasks to the labor lines. So for the audio technician, even though we have the dates and times assigned already, I'm just going to go ahead and assign that show task. And that'll then assume the same dates and times from the task that's defined in schedules. And similar to the ability to select multiple lines when I'm using assigned dates, I can do the same here. So I can choose multiple lines, and here I'm actually going to go to update labor lines and choose the tasks. This is going to be show, and apply to all of those lines. Now for my stage technicians and my riggers, I'm going to pick my first three here and my next two. Let's go to update labor lines, and they're going to be used for setup, and then again 3 and 2 and strike. Oh, I missed one. So now I have all my positions with tasks that are assigned, and everyone has the correct dates and times that are now assigned through those tasks. So why is this better? It really allows me to manage the dates and times more. If I needed to change the setup time, then instead of just having to go through and actually find where the setup tasks are in that list, I can just go up here to the setup task and modify that task. Say we want to change the call time to 6 a.m. and then they're going to work until 4 p.m. I can change those times up here, 6 to 4, hit OK. So now that task has been updated, and then for me to update the labor lines, it's just one more click on the button here to update the labor lines. And now if we look at our setup tasks, they all have a start time of 6 a.m. and an end time of 4 p.m. So that's a great way to manage schedules. Of course, it makes it much easier to manage schedule changes when you only have to make the change in one place and then apply it to those labor lines. So definitely worth mentioning that you can also import schedules. So if I do have another order that I like the schedules off of that have similar dates and times, you can go and import the schedules. So if I were looking for orders from another order, which is Nikon School of Photography, I can bring those other tasks into this schedule just by importing them. Of course, if I need to, I can go and change the dates and times. So if you do have a template that you use or an order that you use as a template with your general task, you can always bring those in and then just modify those dates and times. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and select all of those and delete them out. And we're back to our original tasks. Both the dates assignment and tasks are common between R2 and R2 labor. So let's go ahead and switch to R2 labor. And here we'll go and search for that order. Of course, we see all of the same positions with the tasks already set up. No resources have yet been assigned. And here, if we go to our task tab, we see the same tasks that we had set up over in R2. So R2 and R2 labor definitely share the tasks. As a labor planner, I can go and I can take these tasks and modify them. So that was just the setup task. If I wanted to change the dates and times, here I can. Happy with it, click OK. And then here, same thing. I can update the lines below with those dates and times simply by right-clicking and then using Apply to Lines. So this way, both R2 and R2 labor share not only the schedules, but also share the functionality of being able to manage the tasks. Also, in labor planning, if the tasks are not assigned yet, of course we can assign those tasks just through the drop-down, or the same thing with multiple select. I can definitely select multiple lines and then use update lines to go and add the task. So the same functionality, like I said, is available both in R2 and in R2 labor. You and your team did such an excellent job of planning out this event. Detailed schedules, everything goes off without a hitch. Customer is so happy that they want to do a repeat show next year. R2 has a great feature where you can duplicate the order. And of course the dates when you duplicate the order would be the dates that you had set up. What about the possibility of just taking all of those dates and changing them, keeping the same structure, but shifting the dates to a different time period? So R2 has that functionality as well. Let's go back to R2 and let's duplicate that order, and then let's see about shifting those dates. So here we are back in R2. Go ahead and close this order. Go back to that order that we started with. It's selected. And then we're going to go and duplicate that order. So we're going to go ahead and edit that one. Of course, we're going to go to our labor. Everything is still in 2024. We'll change the name of it. This is now going to be our Fall Classic Rock Festival for 2025. Take a look at our schedules, and we see that our schedules are all in 2024. So this isn't that many, but imagine that if you did have a order with a lot more detail in the schedules and a lot more events going on within the same order, this would be a little bit more difficult to manage. So R2 does give the ability to shift those dates, as I mentioned, and you do it directly from here. You can just choose Change Dates, and it starts with that start date of November 14th of 2024. So let's go and choose a new date. Let's go all the way up to 2025, and that started on Thursday as well. So we're going to start on the 13th of November, and we're going to auto increment all of the lines. Go ahead and click on Yes, Apply, and that applied to the setup. Now, of course, similarly, we could select multiple, change, And we're just going to go ahead and change this to, again, same date. It's the 13th. Apply. And now it's applied to all of the dates. As you can see, our setup starting on the 13th, show starting on the 13th, and then the strike automatically recognized that it's only the last day of the event, and so it set it on the 17th. And then, of course, all I have to do from here is pick all of my lines and use my apply button, and all of our tasks and all of our positions are now updated with their new schedule. Of course, if I need to do some fine-tuning, that makes sense. I could definitely go in and change any of the individual either tasks or any of the individual lines to make sure that the schedule is per the labor requirement. Cut. Again, this is also worth mentioning that this functionality is available, the functionality shift dates is available on the task. It's also available on individual lines. So I could just go here and change dates. I'll get the same type of interface, and then I could change dates for individual lines if I only wanted to apply that. And that's it. So we saw how to assign dates. We saw how to build schedules. We talked about the reasons why building schedules can be very valuable as a tool to manage schedules, both in R2 and R2 Labor, and keep both of them synchronized as well for dates and times that your resources are required to work. And now we're going to shift focus a little bit to generating POs for freelance labor. So for some of these positions, we may be hiring freelancers, and some companies do need to generate POs for freelancers when they're not being paid through salary or through a W-2. So let's move back over to R2 Labor. And here we'll just use the same order that we've been working on to go and take a look at this new functionality of generating POs for freelance labor. Now, in labor planning, on the resource profile, as we've seen in the last webinar for part 1, we do have the ability to assign a company for resources. The company would be that vendor. So let's do search resources for my audio technicians. And here I have a list of all of their my audio technicians, again with availability, ratings, names, etc. The purple names here are my freelancers, and from here I can access their profile. So if we go to access the resource profile, here we can see the field for company. So the resources are freelancer, and we can assign a company to them. In R2, that company is the vendor. Of course, we cannot generate a purchase order without having a vendor, and this is the company that will be used to generate that purchase order. That is the vendor. If we don't have a vendor, then of course we can go and search the list of all of the vendors that are in the database and then add them onto our freelancers profiles. So now if I choose Ardell as my freelancer for this position, I can go and possibly add a few more. Just go search resources. Arnold's also a freelancer, and let's do one more. Frank. So they're all freelancers, they're all assigned. Now, in R2 Labor, on the order, we've added a new field for purchase order ID. So that will actually be the purchase order number once it gets generated. So in this case now, we have our freelancers that are assigned. The freelancers do have a company, do have a vendor. We're in a position to generate the purchase orders. If I save this order, nothing will happen just yet because the resources are not yet confirmed. So for a PO to be generated, they do have to have a status of confirmed. So let's go ahead and change these 3 to confirmed, and let's save that order. It's saved. Nothing's populated yet. We're going to have to close out of this and then come back and find that order one more time. And now we see that they are confirmed and that purchase order ID has now been generated. That purchase order ID has now been added. So that purchase order is created in R2. It is a purchase order created in R2 for this order. I can go and take that purchase order number, and let's go back over to R2, and we'll go and search for purchase orders, put in that purchase order number, and there we go. There is the purchase order for our Dell. We can open it up and we can see that it's already populated with a lot of the information from R2 labor. So it's got the position, it's got the name of the resource, and it has the unit price and the amount and some of the other information from the order as well. So this PO is ready to go. Thank you for attending.